Hey guys, this podcast is brought to you by Sako Sportswear. Sako Sportswear is a local business based in Barry and they produce the sportswear and training gear that you may need. Their stocks include tracksuits, hoodies, t-shirts, socks and so much more. If you're a local team or even a local football club that wants to provide the best kit for their team to play in, then Sako Sportswear is the business to turn to. Even if you're not into football, but are into other sports, Sako Sportswear also provides you with the best gear when you go to the boxing gyms, or even play rugby, tennis, and so much more. They don't just do training gear, or any outfits at all, and if you're just looking for something to wear in general, then they also provide the leisure outfits as well. So if you're interested and want to inquire, then get in contact via social media. If you want to look them up on Facebook, just type in Sako Sportswear. On Twitter, it's at Sako Sportswear, no capitals and no gaps at all. Or even on Instagram, same again, Sako Sportswear with no gaps. Or even then, if you want to send them an email, it's at sakosportswear@gmail.com. They won't disappoint you, so get in touch. Sako Sportswear on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or you can email again on sakosportswear@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon's Voice podcast with myself, Luke Williams, and my esteemed co-host, Mr. Rhys Deans. How are you, sir?
I love that emphasis on the Rhys, but that's the way you should say it. And I remember a uni lecture of mine. It was in my first year when I did a script writing degree. She kept emphasizing Rhys, and I was just looking at it thinking, what? And all my classmates, were just thinking, what's going on there? But that's how you properly say it. And I went, fair play, and I love it, absolutely love it. But got a lot to talk about, though. A lot to talk about within an hour.
It'll be a challenge, but we'll get there. A bit like an international break, I suppose, or a qualification campaign. It's a slog, but fingers crossed we'll pull through.
And it's a bit of a exciting one. It didn't start off the best, but we could always say that it's a bit of a wake-up call, just to get back that this isn't 2016 no more, it's 2021, and we got a big tournament coming our way with Euros, and we got the World Cup next year, so it's going to be a very, very competitive 2 years ahead of us.
It's certainly an exciting time. Sorry, I thought you'd finished there.
No. I was going to say that it is a big task for Rob Page. And the one thing I was actually going to ask you, Luke, is I was going to ask you this a couple of days ago, because I know you're very vocal about the Welsh national side and everything, but someone asked me this, and I'll explain my opinion about it in a minute, but I was going to ask you, what's your initial opinion now on the current situation with Ryan Giggs and as manager, and especially with Rob Page at the helm for the last 6 games being in charge?
It's certainly a very tricky one, and in my capacity as broadcaster / podcaster, obviously I've had to skirt around the issue a lot. I've been treading on eggshells because an important legal matter such as Giggs' case, when we don't know all the facts, we don't know what's happened, and it's almost relying on hearsay. It's a tricky one to sort of pass judgment on, because basically nobody knows what's happened. So I think it doesn't reflect well on the FAW or on the Welsh national side that, our manager is sort of embroiled in something like this. It's not exactly the reputation booster that the FAW hoped the appointment of Ryan Giggs would be. But having said that, if he is found guilty, or if the FAW and himself decide to part ways mutually, I think Rob Page is 100% the man for the job. He is technically, on win percentage ratio, he's Wales' most successful ever manager.
Yeah.
He's only lost 1 game, so.
And that's the thing, though, because a lot of people, I've been speaking to, who did I speak to? It was someone at Barry, but there was a few people saying, "Oh no, Rob Page isn't the manager, and isn't the right manager." And I'm thinking, how can you say that? Because, like you said, his win ratio is better than all the other previous managers going. And I got into a hefty, I'll say hefty debate, right? Because I don't want to say argument, because I know one's opinions to themselves and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the only reason I say this now is with Ryan Giggs missing out on his second international period, let's just say, or international break, I just don't want. I want him to think realistically now. I know he's got this problems that he's focusing on, but at the same time, he's still got a job to do
Mm-hmm.
with the Wales job. And if you're leaving it with Rob Page, now I know he's the assistant manager, but if you're leaving it with him to be in charge of that team, to make the calls, to call the shots, and where the players play and how they play tactically or systematically or anything like that, then it is going to frustrate or put a strain on the players when they play if Ryan Giggs comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So my suggestion is, and this is not based on the accusations, because accusations, and apologies if anyone does take this the wrong way, but accusations are not proof. I'm not going to, but that's just my way of thinking of it. But let's just move the accusations out of the way, because if he has done it, then get out. I'm not. We're not going to tolerate that. But at the same time, you're saying I'm going to take a break because, well, resign. Because if this is your second time that you're taking a quote unquote break to sort this out, then Giggs should just do the honourable thing and just resign and leave the other way. But people are going to defend him, saying, "Well, he was the one who got us to the Euros, right? Or is going to get us to the Euros." I'm not going to disagree with that. And that was the moment that won the Wales fans, that won him back the respect from the Wales Wales fans.
100%.
But if you're going to have someone, regardless of any situation, whether it be the harassment charge or the abuse charges or anything, right? And the manager of Wales is just deciding not to turn up to do his job, then what is the point as a legal body governing just to tolerate that when you got someone like Rob Page just stepping up, going, right, we need to carry on. Just give him the job, and can just worry about the case and everything, and then hopefully in the future he could go back to management. It just seems to me that I may be talking out of my ass, but it just seems to me that it's just leading everyone. It's just not setting a good example on Giggs, regardless of the accusation. Do you see what I'm coming from? Because it's hard for me to say it in a bit of a diplomatic way, but I just don't see him now. If he does it again in the next international break, then what is the general point of actually staying as manager of Wales?
Yes, that is a good point. It's now a bit protracted. It's sort of been drawn out too much, and that's a very valid point. If he is missing 3 successive international periods, then it is almost as if he's, I wouldn't say stealing a living, but he's receiving a paycheck for work that Rob Page and Albert Stuyvenberg are doing. And it's interesting, I think you said just before as well, the fact that the players will now be sort of suited to the Rob Page rhythm, really. I listened to a fascinating interview with him, and he said that at the end of the day, it's still a Ryan Giggs squad. It's still a Ryan Giggs team. It's still a Ryan Giggs system, because they've all got those core values. You wouldn't be having 2 assistant managers in Page and Stuyvenberg if you fundamentally disagreed on ideas. So at the end of the day, they all want to pull together and play the same way. But you never know. There could be slight alterations in training. Maybe Albert Stuyvenberg's picked up on something from his time at Arsenal, and he's implementing that now that he's in. He's more of a focal point. Rob Page is the de facto interim manager, but Stuyvenberg is his assistant. He's sort of almost been promoted in a sense in Giggs' absence. So, whether he's got more of a say in things now, whether the preparation is different, I'm not sure. I couldn't possibly comment, but it could be a case of the players getting used to this, and then I don't know when Giggs comes back for that, or if he comes back for that game against Albania in just over a month's time. It could be quite sort of jarring. Almost the players could be sort of unseated. You could disturb them slightly.
Well, that's what I mean, though, because and we're in March. No, not in that. No, we're in April now. April the 1st. I mean, or as we're talking, it's April the 1st, and we've got the Euros coming up in what, less than 2 months away now, or maybe maximum of less than 3 months, and it's now or never to decide on whether or not, you do the right thing, is just come back and just. Rob Page is still going to be there. If Ryan Giggs came back, right, and just did his job as a manager, right, and regardless of what's going on personally, right, he's still got Rob Page and the other coaching staff with him. And it's easy enough, right? The players will know what Rob Page wants. It's easy enough that what Ryan Giggs wants. It's not a problem. And if it does come to the fact that it comes to the conclusion, of Ryan Giggs having to resign because he was found guilty or whatever, then Rob Page can easily just step up and just go, right, we're just carrying on. And it's not a losing scenario, or maybe a losing scenario for Ryan Giggs, but in terms of us following Wales, us the fans and us the players, it's not really losing much, because we still got someone who's got that first team manager experience already, especially the ones who have been with, especially with Rob Page working closely with the players. And you got Gareth Bale, captain, who's been a very good leader, honestly, a very, very good leader. And why he wasn't made captain sooner rather than later, I don't know. But I saw his commitment, his desire, his passion for playing for his country. All I had to do was watch that Czech Republic game again, and he was just there because he won a throw in. He's like, yes, come on. And I just thought, it just goes to show we got some great players who will play for the country, who will play for the nation. And you just have to see that in the last 3 games, regardless of losing to Belgium 3-1, because I think the Belgian game was down by just bad luck because of losing Joe Allen, just because Joe Allen and Harry Wilson going off injured. But luckily, Harry Wilson wasn't as severe because he came back afterwards. But losing those, and then especially losing Ramsey and Ben Davis at the build-up to the international breaks, it is very unlucky for us that we lost to Belgium. Maybe it would have been different if we had Ramsey, Davis, Harry Wilson, Joe Allen on the squads. Maybe it would have, but who knows? You can only just dream of it, I should say.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's interesting, you contrast with Euro 2016, when for that semi-final we were Sands, Davis and Ramsey, and we lost 2-0 to Portugal in a game which really, I know they're eventual champions. Portugal weren't really too impressive over the course of that tournament. And I think, were we to have Ben and Aaron, or if we'd had them, we probably could have given it a good go. So to not have them for this international break, it was sort of a barometer of how far we've come, really. Losing 3-1 to Belgium, they're ranked first in the world. Since we beat them in 2016 in the Euros, they'd played 51 matches and they'd only lost 4 times in 5 years. So,
yeah,
losing 3-1 to them is not the end of the world. It's not a big shock.
Yeah, it's not a kick in the teeth in some aspects.
I think, it's certainly an element of bad luck. I mean, that the penalty Chris Mepham gave away, I'm not too sure it was a justified call. I think that can go either way.
Yeah, my bam, he's not a football fan, right? But he was watching the game, right? And as he saw the penalty come, he just sat there and just went, "How is that a penalty?" Even though he's not a football fan. He knows the rules, but he just said that the way Mepham, quote unquote, gave away the penalty, he just thought, no, it's How can you give a penalty where Chris Mepham could not see the I can't remember what play he brought down, but the Belgian player is coming from behind and he's looking at the ball, but he can't see the player. How can you give it a penalty? But I'm not the referee. I'm not going to make that decision. He's the one in the firing line for that one. But go on. Sorry.
That's right. And also, it's not. You don't want to blame a defeat on the ref, do you? But also, you look at the bad luck. Connor Roberts slipping for Torgan Hazard's goal, the Belgian second, you know, he probably would have challenged for that header. He just loses his footing. You know, it's just small things like that. I suppose such is the nature of international football, isn't it? It's such fine margins that even the smallest thing as, you know, one slip can give it away. But at the end of the day, that was the hardest the hardest game of the group, I should say. You know, Belgium away, ranked first in the world. Granted, they had no Eden Hazard, but they did have Romelu Lukaku. You know, there were talks that he wasn't able to join up with the squad. That was all sorted.
Yeah.
So he played, he scored. He has more international goals than the entire Wales squad combined.
Yeah.
So,
well, it just goes to show how much class and talent he has, you know. And you had Kevin De Bruyne as well. You had some just absolute talented players, Belgian players as well. And you can see how far they've come as well, Belgium, looking at them. And I need to talk about this very quickly before we go on to the games and the Cymru Premier and everything. Because I know we got a lot to talk about, but I need to emphasize this. This has been a very unpredictable FIFA World Cup qualifier so far. Because if you look at it, right, the other night, North Macedonia just beat Germany 2-1. And you had Luxembourg going on par with Portugal. All right, they lost 3-1 in the end, but Luxembourg beat Republic of Ireland, and they gave Portugal a run for their money. They had, you know, they've been a very competitive side. You got Armenia and I think it's North Macedonia above Germany, previous World Cup winners. You got some of these smaller nations now. I mean, I know Turkey have always been a very decent side. They've always been a good side. But in terms of, you know, if you're looking at it from a realistic perspective, you should have expected Holland to beat Turkey. And then all of a sudden, Turkey just beat Holland 4-2, you know, and then Gibraltar and Malta are breaking through, you know, and it just seems to me that I think a lot of these teams now and the bigger nation size are realizing that some of these smaller countries are now pushing the boundaries. And I highly doubt he will ever be watching it, but Gary Lineker needs to remove that quote, because what an absolute... I mean, I like Gary Lineker. I really do. But some of his comments really does get up my nose. And something like that is, well, you know, he's like, oh, these smaller nations don't deserve to, you know. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. It's like, hang on a minute. Didn't you play against Cameroon and they were winning 2-0 before you had to come back from penalty, you know? And don't get me wrong, England have had some poor, and I mean, San Marino scored back in the day when San Marino scored the quickest
9 seconds.
Shut up, Lineker. Please shut up. Don't undervalue. Iceland and Wales in the Euros got to the semi-finals. Iceland, a population of 400,000. Wales, a population of 3 million. And they were once ranked 117th 10 years ago. And look where we are now. You can't undervalue or underestimate them in some ways.
Since he tweeted that on, was it Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was, last week. You know, you mentioned all those results as well. Last night, Republic of Ireland drew 1-1 with Qatar. You know, Georgia. Georgia took Spain. I think Spain beat them 2-1. It took a 90th minute winner for Spain to beat Georgia. I mean, really, it all points to the success of the Nations League, doesn't it? Because now teams like San Marino aren't going to every game expecting to get pummeled. You know, it's not a case of defensive football. Let's see how few we can concede. It's now, okay, we're playing Malta, we're playing Georgia, you know, smaller sides. Okay, we can actually get to, and so then you're building it up. You know, I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, it would have been now, the San Marino captain burst into tears in his press conference because it was the first time in their history they'd gone back-to-back games without a defeat. And because they're playing, you know, Lineker's with his nonsense of maybe these teams should play other smaller teams. That's the Nations League he's describing. And we're now seeing the benefits of it, of allowing countries like Gibraltar to play sides of a similar stature, a similar size, in the rankings as well. It means they can develop actual footballing ideologies that aren't just, right, let's sit back, let's see how long we can go without conceding the goals in England or Germany.
Yeah. And I think as well that didn't Liechtenstein lose 8-0 to who lost 8-0? Was it Liechtenstein or was it someone else? Someone lost 8-0.
I think Belgium beat was it
Belarus
Belarus 8-0?
8-0. But if you got to look at Belarus as well, I mean, I never really underestimate Belarus as well. I know they're not the exact best, but their league is very competitive, and I know some of their league teams can easily beat some of our Welsh league sides, because they have that standard of football, whatever. But even so, you got the internationals. It's just you got to look back on histories and some of these bigger nations, bigger teams, or popular or successful teams. There's going to be some flaw in it, but football's changing, and it's changing for the better. I see it in the international standards way. That's why some of these smaller nations are thriving on it, right? I mean, the likes of Malta and Gibraltar, they're only small nations, but they're giving it all they got, and I for one just can't give them enough credit, because I can understand. I mean, we could both understand and relate to that similarity, but we can relate to their ambitions, because Wales have been there as well. Even though a lot of people say, well, they shouldn't, but they have. So it just goes to show that it just goes to show us that we, even like with Wales, we can't turn a blind eye on these teams and expect to come out victorious, because they might. We've got nothing to lose, but they have got something to prove, and that's the whole point.
I mean, look at Azerbaijan in the Euro 2020 qualifying campaign. That was a 2-1 home victory with like an 84th minute winner from Gareth Bale. Nobody would have expected that. You mentioned Belarus. We played them in a friendly. It was 1-0. And, granted, we had chances. I think Gareth Bale missed a sitter. Harry Wilson hit the post with a free kick. But ultimately, it was one moment of Dan James magic. That was the only thing that separated the two sides. It is now. And I think it's not a surprise that, Gary Lineker, an Englishman who played for some of the biggest sides in the world, is talking about basically closing football off to smaller sides, because we're seeing it more and more, sort of the increasing monopolisation of it, where big sides want a European Super League, and I think Juventus the chief executive of Juventus wants non-traditional Champions League sides barred from the competition, just because they lost to Porto a couple of weeks ago, who wouldn't have got in under his proposed regulations. We're now seeing greed taking over, really, and I think it's good that international football is sort of almost starting to fight back. You see it when Juventus and Man United lose to smaller sides. You see people say, well, this is an argument against the Super League. But I think having it on a global scale, as you mentioned, all those sort of shock results that nobody really would have expected, it's just showing that it wouldn't work. And the whole point of football is, at the end of the day, you turn up in 90 minutes. If someone has a bad day, you can really punish them.
Yeah. And especially as well, because you got to look at it from Wales' perspective as well, because I remember when Wales played San Marino once, and San Marino, and this is going back a few years ago, but even San Marino scored a goal against us, and it was like a 2-1 win for us. 2-1 against San Marino. I mean, you got to look at that. It's gone through history. I know we like to go, about it, but but I just look forward to all the other fixtures coming up now. That's why I'm a bit nervous about going up against Belarus and Estonia, because you don't know what they're gonna come up, or what they're gonna pull out of their sleeves. So hopefully, with the team we got, I hope we do it justice. But I think we're going to move on and talk about the international breaks, with Wales and everything. and especially, talk about the Mexico game, the Gunter 100.
Brilliant.
He deserved it. It was. I just wish the crowd was there to see it. I wish. I keep saying a lot. But Chris Gunter thoroughly deserved that 100th cap, and he's a big example of you can't rely on superstars. You got to rely on those who are always going to be there. I know Gareth Bale is set an example of what superstars should be doing, because he's always there for Wales, regardless of the size of the country or the size of the team, etc. But with Chris Gunter, he's come from Cardiff, Nottingham Forest, Reading. I know he played for Tottenham, but he didn't play as much games. But he was there, and he was always offering his services to Wales. And look where it's got him, as a cult hero with Wales. And he's beaten Neville Southall, his record, and he's beaten mostly all of them. And that's what I mean. He's just all of them.
Cap player. He has, yeah.
And following up with him is Wayne Hennessey. Wayne Hennessey is not that far ahead, but I don't know if Danny Ward is going to get more caps or something, because he's a lot younger than Wayne Hennessey, and Wayne Hennessey could be out the door. But Wayne Hennessey proved he still got it against Mexico, and Mexico are a very good side. And some of the younger talent as well that were playing in that game, they held their own against Mexico, and Kiefer Moore scored the goal. And I was very shocked that he didn't start. I know Harry Wilson was playing up front with Bale and Dan James sort of supporting him at the back, but they should have had those three supporting Kiefer Moore. And I knew when he came on, he set an example of why he's such a good player for Wales. He should have been starting a lot more. I was so surprised he didn't start.
Yeah, I think I was also surprised that Wayne Hennessey didn't start. I think he was fantastic against Mexico. And, I think that Mexico game was the first time Wales had beaten someone ranked higher than them in the world rankings since Euro 2016. Mexico were 9th in the world. I think they hadn't lost a game in 12 international appearances. So, to get a 1-0 victory with what was largely a second string side is incredible, really, isn't it? So, I probably would have started Hennessey and Kiefer Moore, but we got a very, very good 3 points, so we can't really complain. I mean, this is a Czech Republic side who got 6 past Estonia and then got a fabulous draw against Belgium. So, there are no turnovers, no pushovers. So to get a good 1-0 victory with both sides down to 10 men, which I'm sure we'll touch upon later, is very good. And as you say, Kiefer Moore did change the game when he came on, because we were essentially playing a style of football that was suited to him without him on the pitch. And I think it's no surprise that the goal we scored came from a cross. But it is a surprise that 5'7" Dan James got it. One of the smallest players on the pitch.
Yeah, and do you know what? He played his heart out. He gave it all he had. He was all over the place. And he was the key man. Gareth Bale wasn't. He was the key man that the Czech Republic players were marking. And he just set an example of just keep going. The amount of times the Czech Republic players brought him down, I think I could tell that they were nervous around Dan James, because we knew he was leaving. And the best thing about the squad, right, in the last 3 games, we had pace. We had incredible pace, and we used that to their advantage, because we were so quick and so sharp, and we caught them off guard every so often. I mean, it's no wonder why that Harry Wilson goal is always talked about against Belgium, because it was the way that we calculated ourselves. It was the way we set the bar, and the way we used our pace. It was just phenomenal. And we did it again, against Czech Republic and against Mexico. Because if you look at that Kiefer Moore goal against Mexico, it was still passing and makes you sure you're keeping your composure ready. And Kiefer Moore just tapping it in. It's just no doubt about it, isn't it?
I think that's a very good point you make. If you look at the 3 goals we scored over the international break, you've got a phenomenal effort against Belgium. I mean, Rob Page said afterwards, There's not many sides in the world that can score a goal as good as that against the best ranked side in the world. Then you look at the Kiefer Moore goal against Mexico. Yeah, it was from close up, but it's a phenomenal touch from him, and it's very good play from Johnny Williams down the right wing. Playing as a wing back and did very well. And then you look at the goal against the Czech Republic. You know, it's a fantastic cross in, a textbook header from Dan James. You think those are essentially three completely different goals, and it shows that we can sort of mix and match our approach depending on who we're playing against. I think that really, for me as an avid Welsh football fan, that is a fantastic confidence booster.
You know what? I have to ask this now, and I know it's early. It's early days, but I just wanted to know if you would or not, and it's all to do with Qatar or Qatar, however you pronounce it. I'll say Qatar, because it's next year. If Wales qualified, and I hope, fingers crossed, you know, and touch wood, but if they did qualify for Qatar, would you be there?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's quite an ethical dilemma. I think Norway are boycotting it at the minute because, I mean, as far as human rights abuse goes, Qatar is probably at the forefront at the minute. You know, if you look at how many people have died, over 200 people have died just constructing the stadiums alone. You know, yeah, sure, you can go to 3 matches in one day because of how close the stadiums are and because of the staggered kickoff times due to the heat. But ultimately, if you think about everything that's gone into constructing the spectacle, is it right to go? I mean, obviously, Wales at the World Cup. You know, I would move heaven and earth to get there, but I think indirectly supporting that sort of regime, you know, in a country where homosexuality is outlawed, I don't know.
It's a moral kind of dilemma, which it is doing it because it's a. I was going to say catch 22 then in my head, but it's not. It's a no winner, no win situation.
Yeah.
If you go in to support Wales, you're not. It looks as though you're supporting Qatar's, let's say, political standing agendas and that. But then if you don't go and support Wales, you question yourself: are you really a Wales supporter because you're not going to the country that, like you said, the human rights laws, etc. But you know what,
well, I suppose it is a catch-22, really, because on the one hand, you know, if you go, you're sort of indirectly supporting all of that and endorsing their treatment of certain minorities. But if you don't go, you're missing out on Wales at the World Cup, you know, should they get there. So, yeah, it's a bit of a pickle, isn't it?
Well, funny enough, my grandpa was saying this to me. I have to mention my grandfather again because he's been a bit of an influence in this. He's always given me a sort of ideas on what to do if Wales go to the World Cup, because he knows I really want to go and watch Wales away in that. So, and he knows that we may try and do it by the end of the year or maybe by next year, who knows. But he was telling me about his experience of going to Qatar. And he said, you know, you've got to be very careful anyway, regardless of going to the football, especially in, I mean, he's talking about through his perspectives. And like I said, grandparents, you know, you're talking about the 60s, 70s and 80s sort of laws and that. But he was saying to me, you know, when you go in there still, you know, it's not as if they've adapted or reincarnated themselves in a positive tone. And he was just saying to me, look, if you're going to go there, you're going to have to be extremely careful regardless. And I know they're saying that they're having sections for fans who are going to come without having tickets to say, right, this is going to be specific beer gardens. But he did say as well, you just got to be careful. You just got to be aware of what you say to people and what you do and everything. And well, I mean, I just kept saying, well, at least we can look forward to Euro 2024 in Germany. So I was like, well, the beers galore, as they say. But I can understand, and it, like you said, it is that catch-22 of, should you go to support Wales or shouldn't you go because of the rights laws? But I mean, I know where people stand, and wherever they stand, it's not really a right or wrong statement, but it's just what you believe in and what you stand for, and I think Wales do want us to go because, like I said, it'll be the first time for Wales reaching the World Cup, because we don't want that missing out on, doing like another Romania or something like that, and they, we really want to go for it, but it's a tough one. It is a tough one to talk about. So
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's a nice problem to have, isn't it? Talking about Wales at a World Cup. It's a sign of the times and how far we've come. But I suppose a bit of misplaced hope that UEFA would sort it out, because, as all football fans know, they've not exactly got the best records. They're not exactly the most moral organisation. So, maybe it is a bit too optimistic to hope that they would listen to, FAs such as Norway's own, sort of condemning it and potentially boycotting it. But I don't know, I'm not holding my breath.
I really admire Norway's statement. I have to admit, I know a lot of people are very anti-politics in football. I know we actually touched on that a few going back. That where I stand with politics and football, but I actually do for this one. It's not a political statement, it's a human statement, or if you want to call it a human calculation or a political calculation, whatever. I got that from Invictus, so I'm sorry, the film Invictus. But for Norway, I actually did support that because I thought football shouldn't be built on the blood of other people. It should be there for everyone, and it just, and Norway are setting that example to say, look, do you really want to host a football event that's supposed to bring togetherness and joy, when you look beyond that facade and see that a country has just caused a lot of bloodshed because of a lot of people dying from just constructing stadiums and just treated so poorly? It is, you do have to question yourself, and but this is one of the reasons why I'd love to go and watch Norway play, but screw you on their prices of beer. Damn you.
Yeah, obviously a tricky one, I know. It was my first appearance on the podcast, wasn't it? The politics in football, and we had a very good chat. That's still available. If you didn't see it the first time around, or if you want to rewatch it, relive a bit of the magic.
Episode 20.
Episode 20, like that, quick as a flash. I don't know. I think from a personal perspective, condemning human rights abuse and sort of poor working conditions is almost beyond politics in football. I mean, you look at players still taking the knee for Black Lives Matter. If you look at, the work that sort of the Rainbow Laces campaign does, if you look at, the rainbow coloured corner flags, I think there are certain issues surrounding humanity that go beyond, politics is a bit taboo in football. If you think it is the biggest sport in the planet, has such a global appeal and such a global reach as well, that I think issues like this, it's not if there's people of, this is, it's just sort of saying maybe don't let people die. Maybe don't utilize slave labor, maybe don't do that. And I think there are certain issues such as racism, homophobia, etc., the big ones, that I think football does have a really important part in sort of condemning globally.
Yeah, I think we should conclude on this one anyway by just saying, in regards to, if homophobia and racism, it's like a lot of people. I mean, I know some people are against Black Lives Matter for whatever reasons. Just hope to God it's not nothing to do with a prejudice kind of attitude anyway. But I always say, do you want? I mean, it's like with me with Barry Town. If probably not one of the current players anyway, but if a player was to sign for Barry and it turns out he was gay, then I'm not being funny, but so what if he was banging in 15 goals for us, I'd be loving Fleming Eck. I'd be loving that. And I mean, but it's at the same time, why go and attack someone for just playing the game that they love,
Mm-hmm.
and what's the problem? Why is it hurting you? And why is it
Mm-hmm.
hurting? What's hurting you? Oh, you just don't like it. Well, yeah. So what? There's a lot of things we don't like, but we get on with it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and when it all comes down to it, and at the end of the day, just because you're black, gay, or whatever, if you love football, then by all means, get a ball, go and play. If you really want to play, then I'd be more than, if you're going to bang in 20 goals as well, or you're going to slide tackle a player that I don't like, you're good at my books, regardless of ethnicity or sexuality. Do not care. But concluding on that anyway. But I really want to talk about, speaking of not prejudice, but it's just the attitude with some of the Wales fans are going on to Connor Roberts, because of his slip or dive, whatever you want to call it, because a lot of people are saying, vice versa, saying whatever, and then his red card against Czech Republic. I don't understand. Well, I was a bit angry that, because from my perspective, not the Czech Republic game, from the Belgian game, when he slipped and
Mm-hmm.
the goal went in, I first thought that he took a dive. I first thought that, but then having watching the replays and everything, I thought, no, it was just a mistake. But I don't understand why people are turning their backs on Connor Roberts when he's been a bit of a cult hero recently, and then all of a sudden it's easy for Wales fans, or a minority of Wales fans, just to easily go click their fingers and then they change their opinions or thoughts about him. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think anyway about it?
I suppose it's indicative of Twitter's role in football sort of fandom and in the pantheon of supporting a side, because we're seeing it a lot more recently with club rivalries bleeding into the national side,
Mm.
and people, oh, you shouldn't pick Will Volks because I'm a Swansea fan. I think he's rubbish. He doesn't deserve to be in it. All of this, it's awful to see. It's not what you want. At the end of the day, we're all Welsh. We're all supporting the side. I don't care who pulls on that jersey. If they're committed, if they're playing, I will back them 100%. I think a lot of the abuse Connor Roberts has faced, well, all of it has been disgusting, really. It's just not needed. He's a Swansea boy doing what he loves. He's having a fantastic season as well. He's played every minute of the Championship this season. And in a truncated season when games are coming thick and fast, that's a hell of an achievement. He's playing probably some of the best football of his career. He's being touted by Premier League clubs left, right, and centre. And yeah, he makes a slip, but that could happen to anyone. The surface didn't really look too ideal. That could literally happen to anybody. I don't think it's his fault at all. I think it's one of those things. Okay, it happens. Move on. The red card against the Czech Republic the other night. I mean, first off, what he's getting a yellow card for being punched in the face for, I'm not sure. That first yellow was questionable to say the least. And the second one as well, Thomas Souček, who I've got a lot of time for. I think he's a brilliant player and he seems to be a lovely chap. But to go down like that when he's 6'4", 6'5", and his game is built on his sort of strength and his athleticism, it's just pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the ref made some questionable decisions, and I know I say we shouldn't pin anything on the referee too much, because ultimately that's one element of a 90-minute football match where hundreds of different things can happen. But to send a player off for those two yellow cards, I'm not sure. It just, I'm slightly biased here, but I don't think he was worthy of being sent off. I mean, I know his partner Rendezvous at 2 had to suspend her account, had to deactivate it because she was getting so much hatred because of it, which, you know, is not what a fan does. We
No.
saw it in the rugby as well. We saw Liam Williams get some horrendous abuse. It's the fact that people tag them in and they, you know, direct message to it. I think his partner's name is Chloe, and she was saying she logs into his account while he's playing to delete any abuse that he gets during the game so he doesn't see it. And I just, is that really what we've come to?
Yeah, and
Do you know
especially
what I
with
mean?
especially with Ben Cabango and Ravi Matondo getting racial abuse and everything, I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck is going on with people's heads? You know, um, I, I, I just don't honestly get it. Why the need of it? I mean, if you were, it's all well and good. Let's just go on. Just go back to I mean, go back to the Colin Roberts situation with the Cardiff and Swansea scenario, right? This has been going on for not just Connor Roberts situation. It's been going on for years, right? If a
Hmm.
Swansea player does bad for Wales, the Cardiff fans are going to pick up on it, or Cardiff, Newport, and Wrexham are going to pick up on it. But then if a Cardiff player does poorly for the Wales squad, then Swansea fans are going to pick up on it. Or like I said,
Hmm.
it's just anything. And I just don't see. I know the hatred's there, and I know it's sort of different, you know, to have it at a club level. But leave it to one side. We're all bloody
Hmm.
Welsh at the end of the day. You just gotta just. All right, you dislike each other, but just have some mutual respect to the fact that you're Welsh.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
I had that. I when I was supporting Cardiff City, I had a hatred for Swans. I thought, oh, the Jack bastards, and you know, I thought, ugh. But then at the same time, as soon as I left, when I went to support Barry, my response and my thoughts just changed overnight.
Hmm.
I thought, oh no, I can't really slag off Swansea because they are a very good side. And then when they were first promoted to the Premier League and became the first Welsh side to get into the Premier League, I was happy for them because they're representing Wales, you know. And even
Hmm.
though I'm a bit morally objective of Welsh teams being in the English league, but I digress. But still, we're all Welsh at the end of the day, and of course, I mean, by all means, just keep the rivalry going, but at club level. But when it comes to international level, you're all together and stronger. No pun intended. So I mean, come on, we've got players. I mean, is a key example, right? It's when Gareth Bale and Joe Roden or Joe Rodon, and how you pronounce his name, but I say Joe Roden, even though it sounds like Joe Rogan. Um, but they had that nice little banter where Joe's a Swansea lad and Gareth Bale's a Cardiff boy,
Hmm.
and you know they're having that bit of banter, that bit of oh well we won the FA Cup, so we're better than you are. That's you know if that's at the Welsh international level, just keep it like that. But don't go hating on a player because he made a mistake or something like that. I mean, I don't want to keep going any further because I may make a mistake of saying something, you know, saying something stupid that would come back to haunt me. But leave it out. And then there's Colin Roberts' situation, but then there's the situation with Ben Cabango and Ravi Matondo getting that abuse. I'm thinking, where in your brain does it tick for you to comment
Hmm.
such thing? Piss off. Oh, but
Yeah.
take
I
over, Luke,
mean,
before I lose my go on a rant again.
I think we need to make it clear there's a very big distinction between a few people saying Connor Roberts is shit and Ravi Matondo and Ben Cabango facing actual racist abuse. I mean, they're not really comparable for obvious reasons. And, you know, of course, we condemn all forms of abuse, but racism is, you know, it sounds ridiculous saying it, but it's not acceptable in
Mm,
any walk of life. I mean, I was disgusted with what I saw. And two young lads as well. They're both, you know, 19, 20,
yeah.
you know, playing for their country, living their dream. I've met Ben Cabango. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. He
Was he
was
like?
absolutely he was over the moon that I recognised him. He was in Tesco. He was doing the shopping for his mum
Oh,
just before lockdown. I think just as lockdown happened. So he was pushing it round or the trolley around, getting everything for her. he was over the moon that I recognised him. We had a little chat, and it's just very upsetting, deeply upsetting to see, in 2021 that people are still getting racially abused for doing so much as swearing at another footballer.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
It's all well saying, because I know abuse is not nice, but a lot of footballers do expect fans just to go, because the passion is rising. They go,
mhm,
fuck off, or, oh yeah, shit, but that's just an instinct reaction from
mhm,
fans,
mhm.
But footballers, whether they're former or current, they understand that. They know that they're going to change their opinion the next week, and that's why it doesn't get them, because that's football. It is what it is. But you can't say the same about that in the racial abuse section, because that's happened for them for the rest of their lives, growing
Mhm,
up and everything. And like you said, they're young lads, but they're highly talented. I rate Ben Cabango. I
mhm,
rate him to
mhm.
such an extent. And Ravi Matondo. I was so shocked. Well, I don't know what the rule protocol break-ins or anything like that, so I'm not going to go into it. But I was so gutted that he had to be sent out, because I thought, no, he's a future talent. What are you doing? So, but I
Mm.
rate him so much, and it is disappointing. But I tell you one thing, Ben Cabango's already a cult hero, because he's got that middle finger
Yeah.
gesture. And if that's not done on the t-shirt, then I'm doing it. I
It could
will
be
do
the new Robin Friday,
it.
couldn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, yeah. Well, when I was speaking to David Giles about it, he was saying it's that rock star 1970s,
Mhm.
80s sort of fire, giving the finger or anything like that. But Ben Cabango is just, he will be. And I think soon as after that, he's just going to be a cult hero, because he gave that middle finger. He said,
Yeah.
Don't give it that damn attitude." But we got to
Mhm.
speak about, I mean, speaking of Ben Cabango, I think we got to move on, because I know time's running short, because I know you're busy and I'm busy as well. But we got to talk about the reputation now of the JD Cymru Premier, especially because with Ben Cabango playing for, we played for TNS, for a loan.
Mhm.
So we might as well talk about the Cymru Premier. Um, I think I'll start this off, and then I'll see how you where you stand with this. I just think the way the leagues have been, the way it's been handled. I do believe the FAW or the league itself need to um, go back to the drawing board and see uh, where it's all gone wrong, especially the fact that the Cymru North and South are no longer going to be playing. But I think they left it out far too late, far too late to
Mhm.
actually make it a decision. The Nathaniel MG Cup being cancelled, that was left far too late. The Welsh Cup, or the Coupon Cymru, as some people call it, yeah, that was left way too late to cancel it. And now the bottom six teams are just basically playing for the sake of it, with the top six teams now, especially with Barry in the mix. It seems to be now that they're playing for the European standards. And I think now, if I'm brutally honest, I know next season it won't change. You won't change the FAW's vision or everything, because they're old men in wheelchairs and walking sticks. But the 18 teams, 18 league, Welsh Premier League with 18 teams has got to come back. And the way they've handled it as well is just absolute shocking. And I don't want to call it a disgrace. It's just been appalling. I don't know about you, but that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah. I think really we've got to sort of direct any anger over this towards the Welsh government, really, because it was ultimately, it was their reports that led to this. And I'm not going to nail any sort of political allegiances to the master here, but yeah, you can tell that a government run by Mark Drakeford, who is himself 66, I think, or in his mid to late 60s, with, is it David Ellis Thomas as Minister for Sport, a man who, as you say, is a prime example of the bureaucracy in wheelchairs and walking sticks. Having those two basically deciding the future of sport. I mean, I saw Goal in Cardiff this morning saying this. They tweeted and they said, "Can you, or can our followers send us videos of people playing football?" like outside and having big games. And it's we're not going to dob anyone in. They're trying to propose to Drakeford that sport should be able to come back. You look in England this week, they've had 5-a-side back and everything, and I think I said this on the radio show on what is the last Saturday when we're recording this, but it's obviously difficult to lead a country during a pandemic. Nobody, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, but they should have done a lot more. Yes, they've had emergency funds and they've had loans, but if you look at the treatment of all the sporting sides, you look at even in the rugby as well, the regions have been sort of dealt a bad hand, and especially the domestic game. A lot of the clubs have been tucked up really to wait so long to give a judgment. And also, if at the minute as we're recording this, they're looking into opening outdoor pubs in about 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time. But if you think that's safe and you can distance with that, why can't you distance at the Cardiff City Stadium? I mean, I know there are potential talks about pilot events. I think the Wales versus Albania friendly has been touted as one, but I don't know. I think they've handled it very poorly. But I think again that's a Welsh government issue and not as much the FAW's fault.
Yeah. I gotta say this as well, because I was speaking to a few people at the football club, and I won't say who, just so that if I say anything that's inaccurate, then I don't want the other people to be put in jeopardy or in trouble. But you've got this system now where there's no roadmap, there's no guidance to what is going to. It's basically the FAW. I know I keep pointing the finger at them, right? So, and I don't want it to, because now you say that, now I just feel like I don't want to be pointing the finger at them. I got it, because all the finger blaming should be, the pointing the fingers and the blaming should be at the Welsh government. The issue you got is that because there's no guidance with the Welsh clubs so far this season, that no one in the FAW is going, right, this is going to happen next season. This is the plan. This is where we're going to go. And because there's no like I say, quote unquote, roadmap to guide the teams or where they're going, it's just leading into this abyss where some clubs may not come out of, because there's no guarantee that fans may come back. And especially as well when Mark Draper was questioned about the footballing events and everything, and he kept saying, "Oh, well, we're going to wait till the end of the year." Well, you saying the end of the year is not going to last long for some of these football clubs, and you're going to look at the likes of Newtown and Haverfordwest and Flint and Aberystwyth, some other Welsh football clubs, even in the Cymru South and Cymru North. They haven't got the finest Welsh, the finest financial backing as the likes of TNS. Did you sneeze then? The finest backing financially from the likes of TNS and Bala and Connors Key, and a lot of people say Barrytown. We do get by. We're not that financially stable, but we're doing all right, let's just say. But some other Welsh clubs may not. I mean, you've got to look at Haverfordwest. They've not got their UEFA license because they didn't apply for it, because they knew that they want to stabilize themselves by permanently being regularly playing in the Welsh Premier League or the Cymru Premier, and that's not their goal. That's the long-term goal because of where they are right now, especially with the pandemic. I know at this moment in time that a lot of people are getting their first doses of vaccine going, which is a positive and a hope, a glimpse of hope. But at the same time, we got to reevaluate and see where the league can go. Otherwise, some of these teams won't thrive in the future, and it is very worrying.
Yeah, there's certainly a big disparity financially between, I mean, the league is obviously split at the minute into the 2 groups of 6, but you could do that financially as well. I think, TNS and Connors Key in terms of finances are leading the pack as they are in the league at the minute. So, that reflects on it. But you mentioned the likes of Hadford, West County, some of the, I'm not going to say the smaller sides, that sounds like I'm sort of doing them a disservice, but, they're not the big hitters. And so to see Jazz Richards, a Wales international, go into Hadford, West County, that was probably the element of the story that stood out for me most. Is that, if you told me probably a year or so ago that Jazz Richards would end up playing in the Cymru Premier, I would have guessed he'd go to Connors Quay or TNS or maybe even Barry Town, if David Cotterill has had a word in. But the fact that he's gone to Hadford West, the fact that it's sort of strengthening other areas of the league, getting that experience into what is a smaller club, it's boosting the reputation as a whole. And you've got the likes of Theo Wharton at Barry, at St Kitts and Nevis International. The JD Cymru Premier, for it sort of goes against what the government is trying to do, really. It seems as if they're trying to, shrink it down. But its reputation is certainly expanding. And I think that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, this is where my vision would come in, and I know because I'm I'm nearly 25. I'm 25 in July, but my sort of young vision, let's just say, is to actually have 18 teams in the league, because financially it benefits the clubs a bit more. And the league split, I know it's like a lot of people want to support the idea because it works in the Scottish League, it works in, or the Scottish Premier League, and it works in some other leagues in Eastern European, but that doesn't necessarily mean it works for all countries of national leagues and everything. And I think it's just proven that it's pointless, because it's not challenging, it's not within demand of some of these clubs. That, I mean, you could, if you don't have a license within the league or UEFA license, if you don't have that domestic league and you finish second, you're out of the league. So this is where I think teams need to be fully stabled, and to have 12 teams is not really the most ideal ideal approach to solving the problems.
Yeah.
So this is why I always think that 18, I think an extra 4 teams would do the trick, but that's just me. I know a lot of people may have better ideas than I have. I mean, you may have a better idea than me. I mean, this is just how I would approach it.
Yeah, no, I do think an 18-team league works logistically as well. I mean, I've spoken to a few people about this. I can't quite remember who, but I just vividly remember having this chat, in that if you're only playing 11 other sides every year, and then that splits, and then you play 5 other sides, you will be seeing the same teams play over and over again. You'll be going to the same grounds, So as a fan, you have probably seen the likes of TNS and Connors Quay more than you would have seen Carmarthen. And yeah, they've been relegated. Of course, you'll always get that. But if you look in the Premier League, you will have Everton fans who have seen Man United play the same amount of times as, I don't know, Aston Villa or Fulham or someone like that, because it's rolling. And of course, teams get relegated, teams drop out. But if you've got more sides, it's almost more interesting. I know I've spoken to a few people who say they're almost a little bit disillusioned because or little bit bored, because as much as they love it, the football, it is, the same side every week. It's Bala this week, and then it's Hadford West, and then it's Bala again, and then it's Penabont, and then it's TNS, and then it's so on and so forth. And especially when you factor in the split, then that just exacerbates the issue. So I don't know if anyone from the FAW is listening, get us to on board. We'll solve it.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'd love to have someone from the FAW just to try and justify, but I just don't see that happening. And especially with Jonathan Ford. Is it Jonathan Ford who's leaving? Yeah,
he left yesterday.
He left yesterday. Well, there we go. I mean, you could tell that there's some issues going on behind closed doors. But I do feel that if there was ever an approach to get the league back to being decent, let's just say, not great, but decent enough for people to let's just say, tolerate it or actually look forward to a bit more competitive games. But there should be a governing body that should just purely represent from the FAW. Maybe there is. Maybe I mean, I'm not going to look into it, and I just can't think of the top of my head. But let's just say there is a governing body that do represent the league. But I just feel like that there needs to be a bit more of a dynamic approach, a bit of a realistic approach to seeing, look, how can we actually make teams better and thrive in Europe instead of finishing in the preliminary or the qualifying rounds every single year and lose out to teams that are thriving and just pushing forward, because that's what needs to happen. And it just seems to me that the approach is just not inevitable, or not. It's just not on the cards. But there we go.
Well, nice note to end on.
Yeah. Well, put it this way. I mean, I've got my membership, the Red Bull membership. You've got your Red Bull membership. I know it runs out in 2022, but I'm going to be looking forward to renewing it and to get another patch on there on the go. So, he's getting his out. Here we go.
I actually only have the previous one to hand, like directly. The other one is in the drawer beneath me, but for time purposes, I'm not gonna bore you by watching me rummage through my drawer.
It's all good, mate. But that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna get all the Red Bulls and just run it down on the line,
like a scout leader.
Yeah. Here we go. But no, I mean, I got my Barrytown Leon, always did the Barrytown away days.
I had noticed.
And I just thought to myself, well, I'm just going to take this jumper everywhere where I go, whether it be a hot climate country or anything like that, but just to show off all the badges and everything. And you saw my my bucket cap and everything with the pin badges. And my missus always looks at me and goes, "What are you doing?" I'm thinking, well, so there we go. But yeah, you can close it off if you want now.
I was going to say, there's nothing more to say, really, is there?
No, there isn't.
Well, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, let us know. If you haven't, keep it to yourself. A like, a subscribe, click the little bell thing. That's what people say, isn't it? Yeah. All of that. Follow the Twitter. I'm sure Rhys will stick all the links in the description, to our various social media platforms as well. We are now officially in the last few throes of the season. So it's really heating up in terms of the Saturday Sports Show. So do check that out as well. I've got to have a little plug in there for myself, haven't I? As ever, it's been a pleasure to be on a podcast with you, sir. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Diolch. Hwyl fawr.
Hey guys, this podcast is brought to you by Sako Sportswear. Sako Sportswear is a local business based in Barry, and they produce the sportswear and training gear that you may need. Their stocks include tracksuits, hoodies, t-shirts, socks, and so much more. If you're a local team or even a local football club that wants to provide the best kit for their team to play in, then Sako Sportswear is the business to turn to. Even if you're not into football, but are into other sports, Sako Sportswear also provides you with the best gear when you go to the boxing gyms, or even play rugby, tennis, and so much more. They don't just do training gear or any outfits at all, and if you're just looking for something to wear in general, then they also provide the leisure outfits as well. So if you're interested and want to inquire, then get in contact via social media. If you want to look them up on Facebook, just type in Sako Sportswear. On Twitter, it's at Sako Sportswear, no capitals and no gaps at all. Or even on Instagram, same again, Sako Sportswear with no gaps. Or even then, if you want to send them an email, it's at sakosportswear@gmail.com. They won't disappoint you, so get in touch. Sako Sportswear on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or you can email again on sakosportswear@gmail.com.